Hey guys, welcome back here to Advanced Bass Fishing, and really appreciate you guys coming by the channel to check out the episode today. You guys, today I want to have sort of a comprehensive discussion on jig colors. How do you determine jig colors? What's the best jig colors? This is a big factor in jig fishing, and a lot of people struggle with jig fishing, guys. And one of the reasons they struggle with it is jig fishing. It seems simple because the jig is basically just a lead head with some rubber on it and a hook. But there's so many nuances behind jig fishing that you have to understand before you can really be super successful at it. So I sort of want to give you guys some tips and advice on how to make jig fishing easier, how to catch more bass on jigs. I see a lot of people struggling with it, so we're going to dig into in today's video here. And also, guys, we'll be talking about my Blaukat Throwback jigs and my Blaukat Power Finesse jigs, guys. These are my hand-tied living rubber jigs made by Cumberland Pro Lures. I'll have the link to these in my Tackle Warehouse link in this video description if you guys would like to pick up some. We got 7 different colors in both models, 3 different sizes. You can use that link. And real quick, guys, before we get started here, I just wanted to let you guys know that one of the things that Cast King's really talking about a lot this month is they've got this new Kestrel Elite bait cast outfit. Now, this is a Finesse bait cast system. If you don't like using spinning tackle, this Kestrel will handle lures down to like 64th of an ounce. So if you like to fish like little bitty crankbaits or small jerk baits like this, check out this Kestrel Cast King model. I'll put the link in the description of the video here. It's designed specifically to cast really light baits with light lines. So if you're interested in something like that, you can get it at that link in the description. So really appreciate that. Okay, we do a lot of videos on jig fishing on all 3 of my channels, and we do a lot of jerkbait videos too. And the reason is that not only they're my 2 favorite lures, but they are 2 of the most incredible bass catchers once you master them. And one of the reasons I do a lot of videos on them is there's a lot to them. There's a lot of variables that will determine the success in both jerkbait and jig fishing. It's not like, say, a crankbait, where a crankbait is basically just your speed to retrieve, your color, and the profile of the crankbait. Jig fishing, you have, let me sort of list some of the variables here. You have, not only have the skirt color, but you got the skirt composition, like whether it's rubber or silicone. You got different type of hook sizes and diameters. Same with the weed guards. You got different type of line tie angles here that all determine if the jig is for like wood or rock. Then you have the trailer variable as far as the size and profile and the type of trailer in correlation with the jig size creates different profiles. Then you have the color option with it. You've got where you fish it, you got how you work it, you got the equipment that you use with it, you got the best conditions for it. It just goes on and on. But specifically in this video here, I want to go over color in jig and talk a little bit about colors that I like and different situations that colors work really good in, because it has a really big impact in it. Now, there's 3 primary color palettes that I use. One is this is our new Power Finesse jig, guys. This is the silicone Clearwater Green Pumpkin. It's a silicone skirt. Silicone is pretty much, for me, relegated to very clear water. If I'm fishing water visibility that has like over 4 foot of clarity, I like a silicone skirt because it's more translucent. It's a little bit more natural looking in the water. And then the other 2 colors are some type of a brown variation. Now the browns, you can have different, secondary colors in them. This brown is going to work really good in water visibilities between like, say, 2 to 4 foot. And then the 3rd color option is you have your black jigs, whether it be black and blue, black and chartreuse, solid black. And the black is going to be good for water visibilities of under 2 feet. So this is sort of how I like to classify my jig colors, is the green pumpkins, the browns, or the blacks, those type of thing. And like I said, the variations in that are wide ranging, because like in ours, we have a lot of different browns with like orange and purple and blue. You got different type of secondary colors in there. Same with any, jig skirt on there. And that's one of the things that you sort of have to tweak yourself, is those secondary colors that go beyond the primary color are very situational. In other words, specific water visibilities, specific light intensities. Some lakes just have bass that prefer certain colors. It's like there's something about the watercolor and tint in some lakes that certain colors just work better, or they work really good on one lake and they may not work good on another lake. So with the secondary colors, you sort of have to experiment a little bit. Now you could you could probably do okay just taking a straight black jig with no other secondary, a straight brown jig, and a straight green pumpkin jig and catch a lot of fish. But using those accent colors through experimentation really helps you out quite a bit there. Okay, with that, everything within the color changes, not just with water clarity. A lot of people say, okay, the water visibility, Randy, it's 2.5 feet, so that means I need to use a brown jig. Now there's some truth to that, but there's some other things you have to consider too, because when you're talking about water visibility changes a lot with the environmental conditions you have on it. So let's say, for example, if you have 2 foot of water visibility and it's sunny out and the sun is high overhead at noon, you have maximum light penetration in that 2 foot of water when that sun's overhead and there's no clouds or anything. So it's going to actually increase the visibility to the fish in that 2 foot water clarity. Now, in the same situation, you may have 2 foot of water visibility and then you may have a rainy, cloudy day and it's windy. It greatly reduces that water visibility to the fish. So there's a lot of different variables that determine the color. So what I'm talking about in this, say for example, if I like a brown jig in 2 foot of water on a partly cloudy day with a 10-mile-an-hour wind. If it's 2 foot of visibility and there's no wind whatsoever, there's not a cloud in the sky and the sun's straight overhead, it's going to increase my light penetration. So in a situation like that, I may want to go to the green pumpkin, even though it's only 2 foot of visibility, because of the environmental conditions increase the visibility under the water. But on the other hand, say for example, you get out there and it's 7:30 in the morning and the sun's still not up very high and it's raining and it's cloudy and the wind's blowing 15 miles an hour. And normally the water visibility is 2 foot that you'd be using the brown jig in. In that type of a low light situation where the sun's low and it's windy and cloudy, I may go to a black and blue jig and 2 foot of water visibility. So this is one of the things that I'm talking about as far as color. It makes jig fishing complicated because things like your light intensity, and the light intensity varies greatly, guys, because when you can't really talk in terms of like a sunny day, a partly cloudy day, or a cloudy day, because every single one of those conditions has a different set of variables. You can have a sunny day out, but it may be hazy and it may have that haze in the air. Or you could have, say, a cloudy day and it can be that thin, wispy clouds. The entire sky may be cloudy, but it's a real thin layer of clouds, so the light intensity is greater. And then you may have those big, thick cumulus clouds come in and it starts raining and the light intensity is extremely low. So every cloud formation, this is why you sort of have to be an amateur meteorologist, every cloud formation that you have is going to dictate and change that light penetration and the water visibility. So this is what makes it difficult, because when you go fishing on any particular day, you're going to have a different type of cloud cover intensity and light intensity, and you got to match that to the color of your jig and the color of the trailer. And I can give you some basic foundations, just like what I talked about, and I'll talk about here in a second, but ultimately you have to experiment. So let's say, for example, it's 3 foot of clarity and I got my favorite brown jig with a green chunk on there, which is one of my favorite, setups in that type of water visibility. Okay, let's say we have the same situation. I've got 3 foot of visibility, and instead of a sunny day, it starts raining lightly. It's like we got light rain coming in, you still got 3 foot of visibility. I may take the green pumpkin chunk and I may dye half of it orange or chartreuse to make it stand out a little bit more. Or I may put even like a blue chunk on there to try to give it some more color. So this is what I'm talking about when you're talking about pairing your jig trailers with your skirt colors. You have got to constantly experiment with that, and you've got to constantly have a wide selection of different colors to match those situations with. Because, if you're flipping a lay down log or something, and you flip on the side of the lay down log where it's sunny on it, it looks different in the water than if you flip on the other side of that log where the shade's on it. So this is the thing that you have to experiment with a lot with it. Now, in terms of the living rubber, let me talk a little bit about this, guys. This is my Blaukat Throwback jig. It's hand-tied living rubber. This is the skirt material that was very popular back in the late 70s to about mid 80s, before they came out with silicone. This is the best skirt material that you can have because it bellows out, it has more action in the water, and living rubber puts out a flat glow in the water that silicone doesn't, because silicone absorbs light. The reason that you have most of your, or 95 or 98% of your jig manufacturers, like if you go to Tackle Warehouse, everything's got a silicone skirt with a rubber collar on it. They do this because silicone's cheaper. The rubber collars, they just slip it up over the top of it, so it's a lot less labor intensive. But my jigs are hand tied with thread. Even our silicone jigs are hand tied with thread, which makes the skirt pop out more in correlation with the living rubber, and it just gets you more bites, guys. This is one of the biggest things that I can tell you guys is use living rubber all the time. Unless that water is really clear, then you can go to silicone with that. It makes a huge difference with it. But ultimately, one of the things about color on jig fishing, and a couple of different things that make, let me talk a little bit about what, makes people struggle with jigs a little bit. I hear a lot of people say that, guys, Randy, I've got a lot of confidence in, Texas rig worms and creature baits like beavers and stuff. I just can't catch many fish on a jig. Jig fishing and Texas rig fishing is no different. It's the same bite. Now, the difference is on my Texas rigs, I tend to hop them. I tend to shake them more and pull them. And on my jigs, I tend to hop them off the bottom a little bit more. So that's the only difference between the two. But in terms of where you fish a jig at and what the bite feels like, it's the exact same thing. I fish a jig the same places I fish a Texas rig. It can be around targets, it can be penetrating targets, whatever. Jig and Texas rig are exactly the same, and the bite feels the same, because when a bass hits a jig or a Texas rig, they usually swim down to it and they look at it and they flare their gills and they inhale the whole bait. They inhale the whole jig or they inhale the whole Texas rig. Occasionally they will reach down and bite it in different type of areas, but a better fish will usually always inhale it. So the bite feels the same. So in that sense, don't get caught up in saying I can't catch them on a jig, but I can catch them on a Texas rig, because if you can catch them on a jig, you can catch them on a Texas rig. The difference is a jig is a bulkier bait. And any time that you're dealing with bulk over like length and smaller diameter, like with a worm or creature bait, you're gonna reduce the number of strikes you get. There's a lot of truth to the bigger bait, the bigger fish, and also, guys, the bigger bait, the fewer the bites. So let me give you an example here. Let's say, for example, we go fishing and you have a Texas rig worm on and I have a jig on, and we're fishing down the same areas. You may get 25 bites on your worm, and I may get 10 bites or 12 bites on my jig, but my biggest 5 jig fish are going to weigh a lot more than your worm fish. You're going to get more bites, but you're going to sacrifice quality. So that's one of the reasons a lot of people struggle with jig fishing, is you don't get as many bites. Now, not saying you can't, because I've had days where I've had tons of bites on a jig, especially a finesse jig, a smaller one, but that's sort of the mentality that you have to get with it. And finally, guys, you can go with heavy line on jigs. Don't ever use braid, use fluorocarbon. I use that Seaguar and Vizex all the time. If I'm fishing a finesse jig, even if I'm fishing it like on rocky banks or more open areas, I'm using 15-pound test fluorocarbon. And anytime I'm pitching a jig around cover, I don't care if the water visibility is 4-foot clarity or 4 inches, I'm using 20 to 25-pound test fluorocarbon. 25 is my favorite, but if I go down to like a 3/8 ounce and maybe the cover is a little bit sparser, then I'll go to 20, because I really like the way a jig falls on 20 and 25. So, guys, that's just a few jig fishing tips. Again, you can get my jigs there. They'll be in the Tackle Warehouse link in the description of this video. Appreciate you guys tuning in.